Hi, welcome back to part 5 of the campervan build. I'm continuing to lay the floor and line the ceiling. Let's get into it. I'm reusing the factory floor. Here the factory floor finishes and then there's a gap. So what I will be doing is moving this board right up to the door and then cutting a gap here. So what I've done is marked on where I need to cut out, and I'll use a jigsaw to cut that out. There will be a gap left at the back on the floor, but that will be covered up with a step plinth, so I'm not worried about that. And then also this side of the sliding door, we've got utilities coming in here. I'll cut these pieces away so pipes can come out of here, pipes and cables. I've cut the plywood flooring, I'm happy with that. The next step is to lift all this plywood out. I'll then get the vinyl floor covering that'll be gluing to this, and I'll be placing this upside down on top of it. And then I'll use this plywood flooring as a template to draw around the vinyl and then cut it out. I've placed the tarpaulin on the floor, then I've placed the vinyl upside down, and on top of that I've placed the flooring upside down. Then I've traced right around the edge so I can lift it up now and just cut round. I've cut round that very loosely now, so I've probably left a bit more, left 2 or 3 centimetres all the way around, because you need a bit of tolerance when you lay it down. Apart from this very top edge, I've cut that quite tight. That's going to be covered with a plinth anyway, but I'll use this as a reference of where to start from. The pipes and cables are now laid under the floor, ready for the floor to be screwed on top. So what we've got here, we've got 2 12mm pipes, hot and cold, running to the hot water boiler. And then we've got hot and cold, one running to the cold water tank and one running to a shower point. We've got 2 conduits here. One conduit has a 12 volt cable and the other conduit has 2 40 volt cables in it running to here, and the fuse box is going to be around here. We've also got 4 conduits, 2 running to the back with 12 volt cables. One is a draw wire. We've also got the mains coming from over here. The flooring is now loosely placed back on top. So we've got the conduit and pipes just emerging through these holes in the floor. What we've got to do is screw the floor down. I've got some 4x25mm screws. I'll drill a pilot hole all the way along here, and then I'll use a countersink bit in the holes, and then just place the screws in, and it obviously needs to line up with the battens that you've placed across here under the floor, so make sure you measure and mark across and drill it down. I've changed my mind on the screw selection. This doesn't grab enough into the wood below, so I've tried the 4x30 and I've tried the 4x35. Go with these. I've screwed the floor down every 30 or 40 centimetres. When I walk on it now, it's nice and level and secure. I've currently got 2 roof panels bonded and screwed up. I've used countersunk self-drilling screws. I've made the joint as flush as possible, so when I roll the carpet and glue the carpet on top, it's not going to show lip through. What I do here, I attach these battens and push them up and bond them and screw them in as high as possible. So one in the middle and one either side, and this helps the board follow the contour of the van. I use a telescopic roof prop to hold the board up, and then I go around the edges screwing in countersunk self-tapping screws. The roof battens are now attached. I've left the wire out for the courtesy light. I'm applying a bead of polyurethane adhesive. So I use these countersunk self-drilling screws to push it on. What I can do is get a countersink bit, so I usually let the glue dry and then back the screw out, countersink it a little bit, screw it back in, just make sure it's flush. To line out the side pods, I use this patterned leatherette material from Harrison Trim. It's got foam in the middle and it's quite thick. I spray glue on the side pod and on the material and then just push it on. So I've pushed the fabric onto the pod and moulded it round everywhere, and this is the fabric that matches my seat coverings. So now I just need to trim it off around the edge and knock on some edging trim. This is the suede liner I'm going to attempt to stick to the ceiling in one piece. The ceiling is now ready. All I need to do is spray glue all over the ceiling, and then we're going to work our way from the back to the front. When I spray glue on the ceiling, I use a piece of cardboard to mask off the carpet so I don't get any overspray on there. I've stuck the head lining at the back of the van. I'll gradually glue it and work my way towards the front of the van. So that's the suede liner now glued right from the back right to the front. It's really important to get it nice and square as you lay it on. You don't have much tolerance either side, so if you don't get it square, you're going to end up with a massive gap by the time you get to the front of the van. The edging is going to be finished at a later date, so I will get some plywood along here and line it with the same suede liner, and then the other side we'll have a locker covering this, and then a shower cubicle and another locker. Before I glue down the vinyl flooring, I've done the ceiling. That's to reduce the risk of any glue dropping on the floor and ruining the nice new floor covering. Before we glue down the vinyl flooring, we need to hoover the floor, or we can blow the dust off the floor. What I found is one of these mini leaf blowers. You can get adapters to attach Bosch or Makita batteries, and you just open the back up and blow the dust out. I found it really useful, quite cheap as well, and once the van's finished, if you get leaves or grass or or dirt, you can just open the back of the van up and blow the dust out of the back of the van. It's called a Katsu, and it's available on Amazon, and they're quite cheap. They're only about £20. To deal with the holes left by the anchor points, you can cut a piece of plywood to stick down in there. I've 3D printed some of these inserts. I'll just glue in before I fit vinyl over the top. There's a kitchen pod going here, so it's not really that important. And that's covered up by a shower. That's hidden behind a seat. This is under a bench seat. This is under a bench seat and behind a water tank. These two are really the only ones that will have the vinyl where you'll be able to see it after the floor's finished. To install the vinyl floor, I've sprayed glue all over the floor and not onto the vinyl yet. I've slid it in from the back, and we've now got to use a Stanley knife to carefully trim all the way around. Once I've got a good fit, I'll then peel the floor back, spray contact adhesive on the vinyl and roll it down. To cut around the wheel arch, I'm actually finding it useful to use these tin snips. When I've peeled back the vinyl, I've drawn this line on, and that gives me a good idea of how much I actually need to cut off, and it's a bit easier than guessing with a Stanley knife. It's now ready to be glued down. So you want to pay closer attention to this left hand side, because the majority of the right hand side is covered up anyway. In the back here, this will be seen, and also around here. At a later stage, I will then finish this edging off with some stair nosing. And the same here, this will be finished off at a later date. With the van lining complete, I'm really excited to be moving to the next phase of the build. What we've done so far in 8 days now is fully line the van out to allow us to start installing the furniture. Within the next week, we'll have a functional camper van. Albeit not finished, we'll still need to complete electrics and plumbing and trim the van in certain areas, but it will be functional to be used. So that's pretty exciting. So we've got these lockers pre-built, ready to install. I manufacture these and available at camperlux.co.uk. So all we need to do is bolt these in position. So we've got a locker above the window to install, shower cubicle, bed. I've got a kitchen pod pre-built to install, and then we're ready to roll.